Deus, nos salutaris nostre, Domine ex meus, Filii et Deus, ex meus, Deus noster, Domine ex nostre, Angeli, Ave Patri, Laudem Domino Maestatis,
Hey, how's everybody doing? I've been having a fantastic day. It is Saturday, May 17th, and we're back. We have our first Saturday morning show in a very long time. Astro, how long has it been?
I think it's been like 2 months.
2 months?
Oh.
Dude, it's been like a year. What do you mean 2 months?
No, I don't believe you.
Surely it's been shorter than that. Come on.
Yeah, average monkey understanding of time.
Average Pakistani understanding of time.
So true.
What do you mean? I'm not even Pakistani.
Dude, has India bombed your house yet?
I'm Iranian.
Bro, I thought you were Pakistani. What?
No.
Wait. Astro's not Pakistani?
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Wait, you're serious?
Where are you from?
I completely understand. I'm being trolled right now. So.
No. Where are you actually from, dude?
I'm Iranian. I'm from Iran.
That's basically Pakistan. Like,
I mean, they're like the same country, aren't they?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Didn't we invade one of them?
I'm not continuing this.
I thought we invaded Pakistan.
Yeah.
Well, you're Australian, so.
Well, no, you dragged us into that war.
5 troops in our invasion of Pakistan. Astro, are you not Pakistani?
I guess I am now.
You are? Dude,
yeah.
That's crazy. So, how has the war with India been going on?
I mean, we just shot down like 5 Indian jets, so I guess it's been going good for us.
Good job. I'm proud of you. Too bad you couldn't shoot down all those missiles from Tel Aviv.
So real.
Yeah, you guys are kind of getting your butt kicked right now. You guys are about to totally capitulate to all of America's demands.
No, that's not gonna happen.
Dude, it's literally happening. It's literally dude. No. You can say it's not going to happen all you want. You guys are giving up the nukes. We're going to save your butts from getting the crap bombed out of you by Israel.
But Christian,
I mean, they can't do it.
Huh?
Nothing ever happens.
No, everything must happen. Everything is going to happen. You guys are going to totally capitulate to everything.
No.
Give up your nuke.
That is never going to happen, no.
No, I can't accept that philosophy after we got Pope Leo.
No, it's happening. And then Balochistan is going to form. You're cooked, Astro.
What?
Yeah, you're done. I mean, you guys are totally going to completely capitulate to everything America says. It's going to happen. I mean,
that is not going to happen.
Yes, it's going. I don't know why you're talking so much.
No.
It's going to happen.
No, bro, you've been saying it for like 46 years now. It's not happening.
Yeah, and you guys have been saying that you're gonna, we're not going to let the Israelis walk all over us and just let all of your air defenses get bombed by the Israelis.
Come on, it wasn't like that.
It literally was like that.
No, it wasn't. It was just Russian air defense.
I'm gonna send some drones after like 2 weeks. Dude, if Pakistan could respond to India in like 30 minutes, why can't you guys respond to Israel in like 30 minutes?
I don't know. Dude, I don't make the decisions.
Exactly, because you guys are scared. You guys are scared of Israel. You're scared of America. You're shaking in your boots.
Yeah, well, if somebody literally wants to nuke you.
Well, if Israel nuked you, then you could just like unleash all of your missiles.
Yeah, but then a lot of people would die on our side. So, like,
They don't have, dude. You have a big country. I mean, it's not like they could do that much damage.
yeah, but if you just nuke like Tehran, then how many people will die? Like
Okay,
12
well,
million?
I'm asking ChatGPT, if Israel unleashed its entire nuclear arsenal on Iran, how many people would die? Let's see what the small price. It's a small price I'm willing to pay. Um, no, that's not that bad. 2 to 5 million.
2 to 5 million is not bad.
It's it's
Could
it's
be
not that
worse.
horrible. I mean, is 2 to 5 million really that much of a price to pay for the destruction of
I
the
mean, I
Zion?
guess that's a half the population of Israel. So,
It is a small price to pay for the freedom of mankind and the future of the world.
um, I
Does
mean, I can't
Astro
say.
speak Urdu?
You mean Urdu? No, I don't.
No. We love Astro and we love Blue Dog.
So real.
I think the Palestine situation is a mask off genocide right now. Trump just said he wants to forcefully displace 1 million Palestinians. Well, yeah, of course it is. Mr. Wagner, last time I made you crash out about limbo, but only disagreed because I misunderstood what you said. Sorry, sir. Many such cases. Everybody who disagrees with me probably just misunderstood what I said. That's a joke, but I appreciate the apology. I appreciate the super chat. I apologize for crashing out on you so quickly. Sometimes we crash out, and we shouldn't crash out. But I actually have a big announcement. I said that on Twitter. I was going to be making a huge announcement. And Astro, are you excited for this announcement?
Yeah. I mean, I know
So,
what it is, so I'm not that excited. But yeah, I'm
well,
sure
yeah.
people
So
will
it's
be.
actually a new book. Look at the back of this. Doesn't this go hard?
Yeah, that's awesome.
My wife did the cover actually.
Yeah.
So this right here, it is a brief refutation of middle knowledge by Charles Rene Billowart. So new refutation from Billowart. It's on Amazon. I translated it. So this is my first book that I translated on Amazon. So, I think I did a pretty good job. It's a hand translation. So I think that I did a great job. I was very nervous, because because it's one thing, to translate something quickly for course notes or something like that. But it's a completely different thing if you're going to publish it, because now it's in the public sphere. Anybody wants to read through and critique my translation skills, they can do so. So it is a bit nerve wracking, but I thought I did a really good job on it. So you can buy this Amazon Brief Refutation of Middle Knowledge. It's on Kindle. It's on paperback as well. And I have a goal. I want to, get it up there highly ranked on Amazon because it's very important. Amazon has its own algorithm thing, and the two ways in which you get up on the Amazon algorithm are reviews and purchases. So first, pick up a copy, but also review it. Give it 5 stars. Not only give it 5 stars if that's all you can do, whatever. But not only give it 5 stars, but write a review. So if you write a review, give it 5 stars. You're going to be really helping out everyone getting their hands on the brief refutation of middle knowledge by Charles Rene Billowart. Astro, tell everyone why they need to buy this.
Okay, so I don't know, there are many reasons that you need to buy this, but first and most importantly is that Billard was the last greatest Thomist of the Broke era. So he basically had access to any a great Thomist classic before him. So what he's doing is basically collecting the summary of most orthodox and most common teaching of the Thomists against the Jesuits. So what you'll be reading is the best summary of Thomists who lived from 1600s to 1750s, and that's what you're going to get. And what's good about this is that he doesn't get into individuals, but he gets into specific positions that were common during the day. So you'll see him giving 5 or 4 different positions of the Jesuits, and he refutes them one by one. And one thing that he does, which almost no Thomist does before him, is that he doesn't go into um, not unimportant details that are not needed at all. So you might be seeing works that are like 500, 600 pages, double columned in Latin, and you might get bored reading them. So if you want a work that is a summary, a really good summary, a brief summary of most orthodox Thomistic teachings, you really need to get Billard, because what he does is that he gives the best arguments, he skips details that are not needed, and he responds only those principal objections that are brought forth by Molinists and Congruists and all those anti-Thomist groups, even including Scotists. So make sure to buy this and support Christian B. Wagner.
Yes, because if this is successful, there's probably going to be a lot more down the line, right? Because the specific special thing about the Summa Summae. So for those who don't know, there's two works by Billard. There's a longer one, and then there's the shorter one. The shorter one is called the Summa Summae. With the shorter one, it is a very concise treatment of all the matters. That's actually what I use for my course in Thomistic theology. I use the Summa Summae because it doesn't go over superfluous questions. It doesn't go over a bunch of the weird questions that some of the scholastics treat. It treats just the essentials. So this is what makes it such an awesome resource.
Nice.
That was a very convincing ad. Yeah, because we need to get the goal is we need to get like 15 to 20 reviews. So everybody needs to review it. And then we need to get like, I don't know, somewhere between like 75 to 100 sales. And once we hit around that point, that's when it starts to get organic. So all the normies who are like going on Amazon and they like put a book in their cart from Molina's Concordia, all of a sudden will pop up like, oh, they also purchased, like you ever do that on Amazon when you purchase something says, oh, they also purchased this. So when all of these Molina LARPers go on and try to purchase their Concordia, Bill O'Art's going to pop up right in front of their faces and say, oh, people also purchased this when they're reading about this. And then we will slowly but surely convert all of the Molinists to strict observance Thomism. So this is, who's the new guy? He is a guy from Australia.
Hi, I'm Sacred Heart Theology. I'm an 18-year-old Australian theology university student, and I am here on the Saturday morning show due to Mr. Wagner's kindness.
Yeah, he begged me. He was like tears.
I did
Tears
not beg you.
rolling down his face, begging me to come on the Saturday morning stream.
Only because it's such an honor.
Yeah, I guess. You're welcome. Can you be a good scholastic philosophy? I'm assuming you meant philosopher without knowing Latin. No. I mean, if you're talking about like philosopher, like you're like writing books on philosophy, like stuff like that. No. I mean, if you're just talking about somebody who just reads and like, I don't know, just you're not actually like doing work in philosophy, but you just kind of something you want to read about, then sure. But if you're gonna like actually do it professionally or and academically, no, you need to know Latin.
Mm. Yeah.
There was this is very important. Gonna review it without buying it. You need to do that as well. You need to review it, but do not buy it.
Yeah. Think of this. If you don't do it, you're letting someone like Father James Martin's book to be on top. We need to surpass him, okay? Because he's a Molinist.
Dude, what if we did get more? Let me look at Father James. Do you think Father James Martin is a Molinist? Because Pope Francis was a Thomist. He was a Vignesian.
Oh, come on. That's not
He
true.
was.
Let's not get into that.
Pope Francis was a Vignesian.
That is so fake.
Is James Martin actually a Molinist?
I don't even know if he knows about like this controversy, but I guess.
Let me look this up. I bet you we can find him commenting on it. James Martin has like 1 million words in the public sphere. He probably said Molina at one point.
Yeah. Let's see.
Nope, cannot find anything on
Rip.
interview with Father James Martin. No, it's just a bunch of Latinx people with the last name
Yeah.
Molina.
MMA? What the hell?
Men
Okay,
who
I
are-
actually Googled Father James Martin and Melina, and it showed me a gay couple being blessed by James Martin.
average Molinist.
Average.
Wagner, my copy arrives tomorrow from 7 to 11 a.m. That's the awesome thing about maybe once I hit 100 sales, I'll do like a huge giveaway or something like that. I don't know.
You know that's a
Actually,
true
told you guys
Wagnerist.
that. I will
by
never
now.
do a giveaway. Buy your copies. I will never do a giveaway. Giveaways are never happening.
Let's go.
So, Astro, what have you been reading about recently?
Actually, I don't even know.
You don't even know, so you haven't been reading about anything.
No, not really. No.
Yeah, well, that's why you're cringe. How about the whole Bellarmine Suarez controversy?
What about that? I mean,
It's
we have just started digging
because
into it, so it's gonna take a while.
Suarez is awesome,
Mm.
but there's so
That
many
is-
people who slander Suarez
Sorry.
because Suarez is the greatest philosopher of the entire Baroque era. Suarez, when I think of Suarez, my heart just leaps for joy. Suarez is the great. He's the second Thomas, the great student of the angelic doctor.
Yeah, he's a motive of credibility for the Catholic faith.
Suarez is a motive of credibility for the Jesuit order.
That's true.
So when I just like think about Suarez, I'm just completely enamored with how awesome Suarez is. But the real question is, how in the world did Suarez fumble when it came to middle knowledge?
Yeah. No one knows. That's a mystery.
But Suarez, to be fair to Suarez, Suarez's views on middle knowledge are actually much more intelligent than Molina's views on middle knowledge. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I think like out of 5 different models of Scientia Media, like Suarez's the medium in Co-Suarez's science to middle knowledge is actually more intelligible than the others because he still believes that it's a decree, but as it is future. So he still like assigns it to a decree, but others just don't do it at all. Like Molina does it with super comprehension, which nobody knows what it is. Even he himself is confused when he's explaining it. I mean, the word itself tells you how nonsense it is. Super comprehension. Like, what is that? But yeah, I agree that like Suarez's view on middle knowledge is the most intelligible one, but it's still flawed. Actually, I was reading the whole section on we were like discussing the LPT. Yeah, I was actually reading his critique of St. Thomas. I gotta say, it was trash. His critiques of St. Thomas's solutions were just trash. I didn't like any of them.
Yeah,
It
because
was
he brings
so
up the
weak.
text from Summa Contra Gentiles, right?
Yeah, it was so weak. I couldn't like believe that this was written by Suarez because like he says something like if this distinction in ratio is sufficient to distinguish the persons, then why don't you do the same for attributes? Aren't they distinguished in reason with a foundation in reality? That's
Because
such
there's
a
no
bad
relative
critique.
opposition, bro.
Exactly, because yeah, that was so bad.
Yeah, I mean Suarez. You know that's just there's so many people like this to where they're like genius, absolutely brilliant, and then they try to
Yeah.
go and critique St. Thomas, and their arguments against St. Thomas are just absolutely awful.
That's true.
He's the stumbling block of the wise. They try to make arguments against him, and then they just like say a bunch of nonsense.
True.
What if I buy 100 copies? Yeah, please do that. Big Steve gifted 5 Scholastic Answers memberships. Thank you, Big Steve. Showed your conclave video to my students. Love Mr. Wag and Astro. Also, what is that profile picture? An alien? No, that's a dog. It's very clearly a dog.
Yeah, it's a dog. How is it an alien? Like, bro, are you blind? I'm sorry, but
Okay, if you guys want to pirate my book, I really don't care that much, but I'm not going to help you pirate my book. So if you want to pirate it, you have to just do the work yourself. Okay, figure it out. Use your brain. Figure out how to pirate my books. I don't
yeah.
care. I think
Just DM me. I'll send it to you guys.
Yeah, it's true. You can't cooperate in this. You
I
told
know,
them
I'm
all how to
joking.
do it.
I'm
I was actually
joking.
talking to Father Sam French about the issue of pirating. He's pro pirating.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm very pro pirating, but I will not help anybody pirate my work. I'm okay if you pirate it, I don't care, but I will not help you do it. That's the distinction I will draw. I will make it difficult enough for you that it would be easier for you to just spend the like $10 to get the Kindle version, right?
Mm.
That's my my way of thinking about piracy. But Astro, I never sent you the final copy though, so you don't even have
Yeah,
to do
but
that.
okay, but hear me out. I already have the main commentary translated, like the entire section.
Yeah, but my translation is superior.
Yeah, but mine is more complete because mine is like 300 pages.
Yeah, but that takes away the purpose of the summa sume.
Yeah, but
The
mine
sume
covers.
part of it.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean, for most people buying it, they're probably gonna find yours better than the OG commentary because that's too long.
Yeah, I actually did a lot when it came to the formatting because like, usually when they want to state conclusions, they say like deco, like I say, first I
Yeah,
say this, second I say this, third I say this. But really that's like a weird way of formatting things. So rather than that, I like changed it to conclusion. There's like a bunch of different
come on, that's cringe. So,
first conclusion, second conclusion, third conclusion.
I don't like
That's literally
that.
what they mean by this. They mean the different conclusions in an article.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, you're
true.
you're cope you're coping right now. Well, how else would you translate it?
I say therefore. That's on
I
Jonathan.
say therefore. Why wouldn't you say first conclusion and then state what he states? I say therefore.
I know.
First, I state therefore. Second, I state therefore. Yeah,
Sorio.
that's super easy to read.
Yeah, dicendo mergo sorio.
Yeah, you're cringe. Oh yeah, and also like you say first, you say second. That's just objection, dude. It's just objection. That's what he means. He means first objection, second objection.
Okay, you can have conclusion. That's just cringe.
No, it's not cringe because
Okay, I'm just
it
saying that I
provides a
prefer
much
this one.
better reader experience if you actually communicate what he means by these things rather than just translating it ad literam.
Yeah, I guess.
Dude, is this Hassan or other Pakistan? We have Pakistan versus India now.
Let's go.
Hassan, are you there? Hello?
Oh, hello.
Oh my goodness.
Your audio is awful.
Isn't that literally all the time?
Yeah, it is.
So,
I don't know why it's so bad.
Crowdfund this man a mic. Hassan, did you hear that I announced my book? Look at it. Doesn't it look good?
I can't see. A brief refutation of middle knowledge.
Look at the back though. Isn't that awesome?
What if you get copyright struck by the Order of Preachers?
Yeah, let me get copyright struck by Bill Art himself. That's true for the cover. I didn't even think about that.
Hassan, are you trying them?
Yeah.
Okay. Call me when you're at
What is it?
This guy's like, let me have a conversation with my mom on stream. That's crazy.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Guess where I am.
Where are you?
I'm in the store.
You're in the store right now?
Guess what kind of store?
So you just go to the store with your mom?
Guess what kind of store?
I don't know, the liquor store. Oh wait,
Whether I went out with my parents, me and my dad are getting new suits for my brother's wedding next month. So what
okay.
am I doing on here?
But
I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing here.
I have no idea what's going on right now.
I perma banned Hassan. He's like in the store. He's like in the store. You can hear the music in the background of the store. He's like talking with his mom on stream. Yeah, he's perma banned. Does Astro still think Reformed scholastics are bad compared to Roman ones? Question mark.
Yes, they're trash. Next question.
How? In what way are they trash?
I mean, specifically the topics I study, they're all trash compared to our scholastics. So, I mean, if you go back and like search Reformed scholastics, scholastic answers, you're gonna see Christian and I talk about this. He actually did a review of what is this synopsis?
Yeah, the
Theologia,
Synopsis Curioris.
yeah, that one.
Yeah, because I think what's important is that when you make this statement, you're not talking about, like the Reformed versus Roman scholastics on like justification or the sacraments, like a controversial issue we disagree with. We're
Yeah.
actually like talking about, like the Trinity,
Mhm.
De Deo Uno et Trino, on God,
Mhm.
as one or three, like, or Christology, issues like this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
and
like
things
it
we
is a general
disagree.
critique.
Yeah, exactly. And things we disagree obviously are going to be different, so we cannot say ours are better than yours because we completely and fundamentally disagree. But on things like God, Christology, and all that, we have common grounds. Like the treatments done by Reformed scholastics are just not good at all. I mean, they're good in themselves, but if you want to compare them to Roman scholastics, then they're just bad. I mean, like anyone who has read Reform, they know that they basically have many mistakes in basic things like Trinity. One famous example I use is that literally all of the Reformed scholastics, except a few, maybe LeBlanc, Votius, and a bunch of other guys, all of them think that persons are modally distinguished from the divine nature, and they conceive of them as modes. That's one big mistake. The other mistake is that most of them err in terminology, like with the issue of autotheos. Some of
Mm.
them outright deny it. Others err in terminology. So all of these demonstrate that they're not precise, either in doctrine or in terminology.
Mm. True. Will Father Suarez be canonized by Pope Leo XIV? I hope so. Jupe. Is it true that in ADS? Okay, one, ADS is a stupid phrase.
Yeah.
Like that's like saying, for example, because divine simplicity is a negative term. It means that you lack something. So that would be like talking about absolute divine immutability or something. Like you're either mutable or you're not mutable. You're not like half mutable, half unmutable. It's like talking about like absolute pregnancy. Like you're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. You can't be partially pregnant. So you're either simple or you're not simple. You're either composite or you're not composite. So one ADS, that's like a dumb term. Sorry, I mean it's normal. I'm not saying that you're dumb or you're dumb for using it or anything like that. I'm just saying like in itself, it's just like I just don't like the phrase. Um, but it says is not conscious of composite reality. If he is, then I have a syllogism against God's knowledge being simple. Okay. God does know composite things, but God does not know composite things in a composite manner. It's like it's that simple. It would be like, for example, to give an analogy, God knows sensible things, but he doesn't know sensible things in the way which we know sensible things, which is, through the senses. God doesn't have senses. So he knows sensible things in a eminent manner, in a way in which is completely free from imperfection. So we say that God knows composite things, but God does not know composite things in a composite manner, just as he doesn't know sensible things in a sensible manner. But also, yeah, of course, God's knowledge is simple.
Yeah.
What would be,
The,
what
the
would
problem.
be God's knowledge not to be simple?
Yeah. And that so one of the reasons our knowledge is composite is because when we know things, we know them by intelligible species proper to them, not us. But since God is simple, the intelligible species that he has is nothing but his essence. So the reason there's this multitude of composite things in our intellect is because I do not know this or that by virtue of my essence. That's not my intelligible species because my essence is so imperfect that it cannot know all these things. So it has to know them by means of an intelligible species that is proper to them. But in God, he doesn't know a tree by an intelligible species that is proper to the tree, but by an intelligible species that is his essence itself. So he doesn't know this by means of this. He doesn't know that by means of that thing. He knows all of those by means of his own essence, and that's how his knowledge doesn't become composite.
So true. I will buy your book even though I have no idea what middle knowledge is. So true. When new update on course into mystic theology next week? Because basically I was working on there's gonna be a video coming out soon on middle knowledge, which is attached with this book. Um, so the video will be coming out this week, and I was working on the video, and then obviously like this is much lengthier than a normal section from Bill of Art. Like it's enough for a whole small book. So I was working on translating that and then coming out with the video. But we'll be back to regularly scheduled program next week. But somebody said, okay, Hassan is trying to join. Wagner and Astro respond to Veritas, aka Critical Thomist response video to your article on transubstantiation. LOL. How long is this? I can't believe he actually did a response to my article on transubstantiation.
Have you had much interaction with that guy?
Yeah, he's strange.
Mm,
I don't have many nice things to say about him, but
yeah.
I guess I'll just leave it to that. I can't even find his channel. When I look up Veritas, there's like 500 things about Veritas. It's terrible marketing.
Mm.
Veritas transubstantiation. I wonder if that would come up. Response to Wagner's defense of transubstantiation. 23 minutes isn't that long. Okay, let me see. Is there like a transcript? Okay, here we go. So let me just put the transcript into Grok so it edits the transcript so I don't have to watch the video. Let's see what he says. Okay. Edit this transcript. This is what I do if I have videos I don't feel like watching. I just take their transcript because like sometimes there's people's voices that are really annoying.
Mm.
So I just like putting the transcript and then they edit the transcript and yeah. I mean, is it like actually a good response? Like is it actually does he deal with like questions of like the formal constituent of inherence and like the common ratio of accidents? Like does he deal with that or is it just like reformed scholastic babble?
Also, he's a reformed scholastic, is he?
I mean, I don't know about reformed scholastic. Would you Astro, would you describe Veritas as a reformed scholastic? Would you use that term for him?
I prefer not to speak, but no. Okay, I genuinely think he's a LARPer, but if you want me to say that.
Yeah. His definition of okay, so he says an accident's nature is to inhere in a substance. Yeah, I guess. Inherence is like the analogous ratio of the 9 categories of accidents. But he seems to he's describing the subject predicate structure in English grammar. So he seems to not understand the distinction between a predicable accident and a predicamental accident. Or like a predicable accident, that's one of the 5 predicables of Porphyry. A predicamental, or it's also in the topics as well. Predicamental accident is one of the 10 categories that's treated in Aristotle's categories. Like these are 2 distinct. Like when we describe, for example, rationality as an accident of human nature, we're usually talking about accident in a predicable sense. We talk about like white as an accident of this man. We mean accident in a predicamental sense. Like one is concerned with intentions that exist in the intellect. The other is concerned with beings that inhere in something. So like it's very easy, and a lot of like a lot of beginner students in philosophy will often scholastic philosophy will often equivocate on these 2 uses of the term accident. It's very very easy for them to misunderstand and to describe these 2 as basically the same thing. There's a good essay by who am I thinking of? I know there's an essay on the distinction between predicable and predicamental accents. Often they overlap, which is why it makes it so easy to misunderstand this.
Yeah, actually, like one of the mistakes a lot of moderns make is when they think that St. Thomas contradicts himself when he says that when he critiques Avicenna and says existence is not an accident, and then later on he says existence is an accident. So this is easy for those who have studied basically commentators. They say that existence is a predicable accident. It's not a predicamental accident. And I think, this guy's
Yeah,
guilty of the
I
same
mean,
mistake.
he's just repeating the same thing.
Mhm.
Here's the problem: Aristotle and his peers defined an accident as something that must exist within a substance. For example, a horse's legs cannot exist without the horse. It's a logical and definitional contradiction. I mean, this just doesn't even talk about what the common ratio of accidents is. What is, and then he never defines what he thinks, um, what he thinks inherence is. Wait, he thinks, dude, this is crazy. I'm reading this. He thinks that the relationship of paternity and sonship is a logical relation, not a real relation. This is awful.
Yeah.
Oh no. He's like, here's the difficulty. The relation of sonship and fatherhood is not an actual relation. It's not a aptitudinal adherence applies to logical relations, not real ones. The father-son example is how we think about relations in our mind, not about how things actually exist.
Oh my goodness.
This is so. Wagner's argument commits a category error by conflating logical possibilities with real existence. This is awful. Wagner's reliance on aptitudinal adherence doesn't refute this because it only works in the realm of logical abstractions, not real world objects like the Eucharistic bread and wine. This is what happens when you start a YouTube channel on scholastic philosophy and you haven't read scholastic philosophy. That was the problem with the original, because everybody will point back to, I wrote probably like 4 years ago now. I wrote an article. Yeah, it was around 4 years ago. I wrote an article against transubstantiation right before I converted to Catholicism, and I like I'd read actually like an okay bit about their critiques. Like I read a bunch of Reformed scholastics in their critiques of transubstantiation on this point. But I hadn't really read a bunch of scholastic philosophy, so I couldn't like critically digest what they were saying. It's like I could just basically like repeat what they were saying, but I didn't understand things in like their relations. Like I didn't understand. Okay, like if somebody asked me like what's the distinction between the predicamentals and the predicables? What is like the analogous ratio of accidents versus like the generic ratio of each one of the categories? Like what are those things? Like what is the difference between absolute accidents and a non-absolute accident? like I couldn't answer all of those questions. Like, what is inherence, for example? Like, what is a relation, and how does a relation function in relation to the act which establishes it, its subject and terminus? Like, I couldn't answer all of those questions. And if you can't answer all of those questions, that means you don't understand the problem. You're not able to critically engage with it. So, like, just going back on, Aristotle or St. Thomas says that accidents inhere, like that. That's just like a very um, it's a very shallow way of understanding the problem. It just shows that you haven't read about you haven't read systematic accounts of these philosophical doctrines, and therefore you can't critically engage with them. That's
It's
basically
like saying, yeah, it's like saying what is an essence, and the guy says it is what a thing is. That's just the thing that everyone knows. You don't get into it.
yeah. Moving on from that. Is Father Sam French a Thomist or a Molinist?
I wouldn't describe him as either. He's definitely part of like the generation of priests that, after all, like the liberals of the 70s and 80s and 90s who just want like orthodoxy, full stop, without any kind of return to the scholastics or any strict adherence to any sort of scholastic theological school. So no, I wouldn't really describe him as like a Thomist or a Molinist, but I guess he leans more Thomist. I don't really know how to describe it. Yeah, I don't know. Like he knows I'm into St. Thomas, and so we talk about it a lot. But I've never gotten the sense that he is, like a strict observance Thomist or look anything even close to that.
It's so over.
It's so over. You know what? We need to get Father Sam French on this stream and convert him.
This is true. Astro, why do you reject relative S in the Holy Trinity? What's the argument? It's because the Suarezians hold to it. Suarezians are wrong, therefore, etc.
Yeah. There are many arguments, but one is that existence of relation is said in reference to the subject in which it inheres, not in reference to the terminus it refers to. The second argument is that there's no necessity for relative existences because the divine essence is subsistent being, and if the relations are identified with it, that means that they already enjoy, in relation to that essence, the supreme self-subsistent being. So there's no need to assert three relative beings proper to each. But again, like this response will basically begs the question, because Soarist and Thomas completely disagree on the nature of existence, nature of relation. So I'm giving you the Thomistic answer, but what I'm saying begs the question. So I'm just saying that's what we believe. But how we prove it, that would take a long time, because you have to go into relations. You have to prove that Soares' view of relations is wrong. You have to prove that relation does not say perfection. You have to prove St. Thomas's view of existence. You have to prove all of these in order for these responses from the Thomists to work. Likewise, you have to prove all of the Soarist theses regarding relation existence so that his response works. So what I'm just giving you is what Thomists believe, but what we believe and what Soares believe both beg the question, because we have to prove prior things, such as like how relations basically work and how they inhere. But yeah, those are basically two arguments that we use.
So true. If the modal relation between paternity and the set of common properties, how can the filiation necessarily relate to the set without having paternity?
What?
I don't even know. Yeah, exactly. I don't even know what this is supposed to be asking.
I guess
an essential word left out here.
I think he basically means how can paternity lack filiation and then be like perfect or something like that? The famous argument Avicenna used. Yeah. I would say that is a big problem for Soarists because they believe that relations say perfection of their own formal account. So
But
what you have,
period.
it doesn't work. I'm completely convinced that it fails utterly. But I would say that yeah, this is a good argument, but it only works against someone who already affirms that relations, as they are relations, say perfection. So if you believe that paternity says perfection and paternity and filiation does not have paternity, then yeah, one lacks what the other does not. Now, Soros will say, well, they possess it eminently, concomitantly, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think any of those work. So, how I would respond is that I just take the Thomas position that relations only say the absolute perfection of the divine essence, which they transcendentally include. So, once you have that, there's no problem for paternity lacking filiation or vice versa because it doesn't say perfection of its own formal account in the first place, such that it needs to have it. So if it's a perfection, then yeah, we would basically be saying that one thing has a perfection that the other lacks. But in a Thomist view, you basically don't run into that problem because we just believe that there's one absolute perfection. So if somebody asks a Thomist, do relations say perfection? We say that yes, they imply infinite perfection, but only insofar as they include the divine essence. And so, what would be the difference between the two views? One is that so Suarez says relation of its own account, or essayant being toward, says a relative perfection which is virtually distinct from the absolute perfection. So besides one absolute perfection, which is enjoyed by the divine essence, there are three relative perfections virtually distinct from that absolute perfection. Thomists say essayant does indeed say perfection. Thomists don't deny that essayant doesn't say perfection. They do affirm that it says perfection, but that it doesn't say perfection distinct from that absolute perfection of the divine essence. And so, to respond to this argument, you can either basically reject the premise or accept it and then reply with Suarez's unique tactics. But I don't think that works. So I just reject the premise that relations of their own, say, relative perfection, virtually distinct from the absolute perfection. So I don't even need to address this argument because it doesn't even apply to me.
So true. Yeah, this Jupe guy is saying some interesting things. He's trying to state the necessity of Molinism because, by the way, Jupe, I mean, even Molina doesn't say this. Like, none of the Molinists say this because this would be like horrific. He says that God's knowledge depends on reality. So the reason this would be a difficulty is because then God's act of knowledge would somehow be dependent on creatures. And if God's act of knowledge is dependent on creatures, then this makes God dependent, imperfect, limited, potential. There's like a very many this immutable as well.
Yeah.
This would like contradict basically every single divine perfection that we affirm of him. The medium in quo, or the medium in which God knows things, has to be somehow himself.
Yeah, if the perfection of God's knowledge depends on things outside himself, then God stands to those things as perfectible to perfected. Sorry, wait, is it? Yeah, perfectible to perfecting. Yeah, basically, those would perfect God's knowledge. God's knowledge of its own would not be perfect. So, what you have is essentially a creature, but you just choose to call it God.
Well, I meant the truth of the content of his knowledge of creatures depends on creatures. I mean the truth of things depends on being, but being itself depends on God.
Yeah.
Like being, this is the problem with a lot of the actually the Molinist solutions when they're trying to
Mhm.
answer the question when it comes to free future contingents. Like
Yeah,
what
exactly.
when it comes to free future contingents, like what is the medium in quo in which God knows them?
Mhm.
If they try to say like simply the like the formal or objective truth of the matter.
Yeah.
The difficulty with this is that truth depends on being. So being is not somehow independent of God. Like things cannot have actual existence or even futurition apart from the work of God. Like this is a fundamental postulate of even being like a theist and understanding that things must be somehow created by God as first cause, as first mover. Like, what would it even mean for you to have things which have being, yet they have being apart from the will of God? Like, this wouldn't even make any sense. So, any number of the Molinist solutions, unless futurition, the futurition of things, which is different than on the one hand, the actual existence of that thing, which comes from its causes, and two, the mere potentiality or possibility of the thing. The futurition of the thing is the preparation of its causes, and this can only happen by way of a decree, which is conditional on the part of the thing. So, yeah, I mean, this is actually like very brilliantly argued by Billowart. He starts out his whole treatment of middle knowledge by saying, okay, what do we even mean when we're talking about knowledge of future free contingents? What do we even mean by future in the first place? And he shows that in order for something to be future, futuration depends on the preparation of its causes, which is from Saint Thomas, Saint Augustine, the entire tradition. So if you have the futurition being the preparation of causes, then it's going to, by necessity, require that this is going to flow from the decree of God in some way. And if it flows somehow from the decree of God, then you've basically just cut the legs off of the Molinist teaching. Because in order for the Molinist teaching to be true, it has to have an independence from the decree of God.
Mm-hmm.
Or else it's just part of God's free knowledge. If it's part of God's free knowledge, then it's not middle knowledge. Middle knowledge, by definition, is something which is neither God's free nor God's necessary knowledge.
So true. This man's been reading Billard.
Yes, I have. You know,
I noticed it when you were talking.
Yeah, when you translate something, it's just like you have to like think about the text a lot more. So I've noticed that when I talk about middle knowledge, a lot of my language is now like Billowartian in nature.
Yeah.
Is the papal inauguration mass happening right now?
No, it's tomorrow.
Oh.
Mm-hmm,
is it tomorrow or is it?
Yeah, it's May 18, yeah.
Right. I don't know. I'm on YouTube and it says it's live. I don't know.
What? I don't think so because.
Oh yeah, that's just the Vatican news thing.
Yeah.
They do
that's that.
Yeah.
Time. Sorry, I'm a silly sausage.
True, you are. Okay. Now to the next one. Just got back from finally being confirmed in the Catholic Church. Awesome. With Saint Augustine, my confirmation saint. Let's go. Congratulations, Marcus. Enjoy
Pelagius
it.
Crying in hell.
Pelagius is currently seething and coping. I'm very glad to hear this. Remember, go to confession frequently, receive the sacraments, and always examine your conscience every day. If God didn't actualize all the possible worlds, but only one of the possible worlds, does it follow that there is some potency in God? This objection has been giving me nightmares.
Oh my! I mean, I swear that I have like answered this 5 times on Wagner's channel, but okay, I'll do it one more time. So no, because freedom means indifference. Now, indifference doesn't require any potency. So when we speak of creatures, right? There is proper indifference in creatures. So, for instance, my will is free to like 2 different opposites. It can choose this or that. Now, because I am composed of potency and act, these 2 choices, my power of willing stands for those choices as something that can be actualized and go into act. So, I am not pure act. So that means if I want to choose this over that, I need to actualize my power of willing to choose one of those. So I go from power, which is first act, to operation, which is second act, actual exercise. So imagine I have the power to move the cup. That's first act, and then I actually move it. That's second act. I can speak, let's say, Italian, and when I'm actually speaking, that's second act operation. Now, this first act, second act distinction is because of creature's imperfection and composition of potency and act. Now, when transferred to God, we have to know that God is pure act. So he doesn't have any movement from first act or power of doing something to second act. Because if he did, then he would change. So he properly has, he's just pure second naturality. So when we describe that, we just mean that he's pure action. He's always in act. He is never in a state of having a power and then using it. That's only with creatures. So if that's the case, then the problem is, then how does God basically act if he wills this or that? Well, the problem is that since God is pure act, that means he's always in action. That means he has determined from all eternity, because he's pure act, that things take place. So freedom in God is not the indifference of a potency with regard to different actions. Rather, it is the indifference of most pure act with regard to several objects. So if you know scholastic philosophy, acts are specified by their objects, right? So objects of the act can differ. So it can be this object or that object. So because God is pure act, he doesn't go from potency to act. He's always in act, but he's still indifferent toward infinite secondary objects, which are creatures conceived by his divine intellect. And because he's indifferent toward all those secondary objects, that one pure act from all eternity determines to actualize one. So we have freedom without any need for potency, because the only reason that indifference in creatures is a potency in relation to act, not act in relation to objects, is because of their composition of potency and act. So God is free, creature is free. But creature is imperfect, so his freedom is a indifference of power to action. But God is pure act, so his indifference is a indifference of act to objects. And out of all those objects, the divine will chooses one to actualize, for instance. So you don't need any notion of potency to preserve freedom in God. So divine intellect and will. So the only objection would be, well, then why do we not say divine knowing and willing? Why do we sometimes use the word divine intellect or divine will? Because will is a power, but willing is an action. So if God has no potency at all, then why do we say divine will or divine intellect? The response is that this notion of potency is only on the part of the person conceiving God. So on the part of God himself, there is no potency in God whatsoever. But because we know God by means of creatures, we attribute to God a power. So it's like this. I know that I'm a rational animal and I have capacity to know, okay? And I know that the cause must have a more perfect knowing. So I attribute knowing to God. But because God cannot have these perfections, the only notion of potency is only preserved in me, that I'm knowing God. And because I know him by means of creatures, and power is found in creatures, I say the divine intellect instead of divine intellection all the time. So the notion of power is only on the part of the one conceiving God. It is never on the part of God himself. So power and action in God are in no way distinguished except in our reasoning. So not even a virtual distinction. So between divine will and divine willing, or between divine intellect and divine intellection, there's no virtual distinction whatsoever. It's only a distinction of reasoning, because the imperfection is in creatures who are composed of potency and act. So the foundation is in creatures, not in God. So we cannot say they are virtually distinguished, but only in our reasoning.
So true. By the way, wait, what were you going to say, Mr. Sacred Heart?
I've got a question, and then I'm going to probably head to bed. What are your thoughts on premarital interdigitation?
premarital hand holding.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
So true, but like, discuss it.
Oh, discuss it. Well, basically, we need to make some distinctions here. Because when it comes to touches, and by touches, we're talking about obviously not touches of like the indecent parts, but like touches of, like the hands or
Yep.
things like that. Touches, looks are like this as well. Words are like this as well. Um, they don't have the same sort of per se sinfulness that like intercourse would have, for
Mm.
example. Rather, it's something which is sinful per accidents. And it's sinful
Yep.
per accidents insofar as it is an inducement to enjoy venereal pleasure. And by venereal pleasure, we mean a certain enjoyment that has some sort of ordering towards the venereal act. So, because there's this per accident sinfulness, you can have sufficient justification for these types of acts. So, like, I'll give an example. An example is like a doctor. A doctor often has to see the less decent or indecent parts of people. Under like ordinary circumstances, obviously you couldn't do this, but under like the special circumstances of his trade, he's able to see these parts and internally resist any sort of motions which may happenstance arise. So when
Yeah.
it comes to things like hand holding, there could be like sufficient justification for it, like as a sign of friendship,
Okay.
if that's common in the culture. And by sign of friendship, we mean something that is like usually done commonly as a sign of affection. So, like a lot of people will misinterpret signs of friendship, and they'll think like, oh, like in America, like kissing is a sign of friendship. Not really. Like it would be like maybe for certain European cultures where they have like kissing on the cheeks and stuff between
Italians.
members. Yeah, like that would be a sign of friendship.
Yeah.
Um, so like, yeah, hand holding isn't really like a sign of friendship, and
Yeah.
like people, you don't hold hands with your homies. That's it's not really a sign of friendship. So like there could be like sufficient justification for it as a sign of friendship, or maybe as like a certain custom, or like let's say you're put in a situation where like your girlfriend, like grabs your hand, like you don't need to just like smack it away.
Yeah.
That's something where you could say like, like eventually, like, oh yeah, I don't really think that we should have physical contact. I'm not really like supportive of that. Like, could that not happen? But you don't need to like in the moment just like smack her hand away or something like that.
Yeah.
Unless you're Hassan.
Yeah, unless you're Hassan, then Hassan would absolutely do that. But when it comes to these things, we need to make a distinction. We need to make the distinction because, like per se and in itself, like you could have like hand holding between the sexes, or even things like kisses or certain looks that metaphysically considered are only for an enjoyment which is sensible and not for an enjoyment which is venereal. The
Yeah.
Samothracenses and St. Alphonsus talk about this. But realistically considered, like in the real world, there is a like a proximate connection between the two, especially because of the effects of original sin. So like abstractly considered, it could be an act which does not include a sort of confusion which enters the realm of venereal enjoyment. But realistically speaking, it's going to lead to that. So unless you have sufficient justification and internally reject any of these venereal motions, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because you're not really able to abstract between the two realities. We live in the real world where we all have the effects of original sin. So no, you shouldn't have physical contact with your girlfriend. You shouldn't kiss your
Yeah.
girlfriend. You shouldn't do any of those things because
You shouldn't
these
have a
things
girlfriend.
really are. Yeah, you shouldn't have a girlfriend.
You just be celibate.
Yeah, celibacy max, incel max. But
Discern
yeah,
priesthood.
that's the teaching of the majority. There's some in a minority which are going to teach otherwise, but this is the more common position. It's the position of Saint Alphonsus, so it's the safest position.
Yeah. I have heard from a friend who objected to it, like, it can be good for building, love between the couple. I think it's a very weak argument, but like, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the fostering of mutual affection, like this is something which is it's useful, good, and legitimate. But what you have to recognize is that there's certain acts which are per se necessary for the building of that type of affection and goodwill,
Mm.
and there are certain acts which are only accidentally connected with it.
Yeah,
So by having like a conversation or by like doing an activity together, one could achieve the same exact end without the proximate disposition towards venereal enjoyment.
precisely. All right. Thank you for that. I'm gonna go to bed now and 10 mass. Stay prayed up. Pray for peace. God bless you.
So true. I'll talk to you later.
God
Talk to you
bless.
later.
Take care. Bye bye.
See ya.
Okay. After
What a
that,
nice gentleman.
I know what a nice gentleman. He's a society man as well, if you know what I'm saying, Astro.
SSPX.
Yeah.
Based. Let's go.
What is
Thank you.
venereal enjoyment? Venereal. I mean, venereal enjoyment is, it's. I don't really know how to chastely explain this. It's mm, it's it's enjoyment or some sort of motion of the passions which are uh, related to the generative faculties. So I guess I'll leave it very vague for that. You can draw forth your conclusions. No question. Just wanted to thank you for your content. It's been instrumental in the deepening of my faith. God bless. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate the super chat. Astro, is it true that the first Muslims denied divine simplicity and were mostly Atharis?
Mm, yeah, I would say so. Although there was like a opposing party called Mu'tazilites, and they from simplicity, but their simplicity is basically so like nonsensical. Like they believe the divine will and action were created. So, but yeah, I would say that first generations of Muslims were anthropomorphists, and this is clear in their hadith tradition. Like like you have Shia tradition, and when they try to interpret a anthropomorphic text in the Quran, like it says God has hands, God sits upon a throne. So the interpretation Shias give is that this is a metaphor, but in Sunni books, when they're interpreting that anthropomorphic verse, they actually give the literal meaning to it. So back in the day when I was a Shia, um, I really couldn't, because I was like studying Sunnism as well. So I could never make sense of this. How you can have basically a non-anthropomorphic Sunnism when your first generation scholars and all those hadith books have anthropomorphic ideas, because all of those hadith regarding the interpretation of those anthropomorphic verses are literal
He
and
says this.
anthropomorphic themselves.
True.
Mhm.
Lorenzo asked about friendship with apostates. You should just look in the tract on faith in the Summa and Secunda Secundae. If you look in the question on apostasy, he actually has a whole question dealing with all the distinctions for friendship with apostates. Recommended reading on the cardinal virtues, the Summa of St. Thomas. W.
So true.
If according to St. Thomas, motion is a sign of imperfection or incompletion, if the beginning of the universe required motion from God to begin, wouldn't God be imperfect? Well, the act is what's called virtually transient. So since the act is virtually transient, God doesn't go from like not creating to creating. Rather, the will to
Yeah.
create is something which is eternal, and then the change in motion happens on the side of that which is created. That's
Mhm.
like the really short answer of it.
Yeah, really short. If
What is
if
the
you're in
easy
Papist Hub, oh, go on.
on Papist Hub? Bro brought
No,
up
no, I was telling that guy if he's on Papist Hub, if you just search virtually transient, you'll see like a detailed explanation.
so true. Thank you, Secunda Secunde. Yes. Reply in Latin. My spoken Latin is not good enough for me to reply in Latin. Oh yeah, what is the easiest Thomist work? So if you go into my videos, I actually have a video going over all of the easiest Thomist works. So if you just look up, let me see. Maybe if you look up like beginner works, let me see. I think that's it. I go over like a bunch of like the easy works of St. Thomas. Beginner works. What if I said easy works? Bruh. I cannot figure out what video I did it on like all of the easy works.
I think that was like a year ago.
No, dude, you're understand. Oh, 5 easy places to start reading
Okay,
St. Thomas. That's what it's called.
when
It's
did
3
you
months
do?
ago. What do you mean a year ago?
Okay, don't kill me.
Yeah, you're dying.
So
If God didn't actualize all those secondary objects, which oh yeah, you already answered this. Why are secondary objects of the divine volition not always actualized? You went over this already. Can a
yeah.
pope teach heresy in his? Oh, I don't want to discuss this around Astro. How would you prove Aristotelian principles like act potency to an atheist who simply rejects it when discussing the 5 ways?
What do you mean? Are you asking me to prove them right now? Like that would take a lot. I mean, if you want to prove it to an atheist, you can just read Father Hugon's commentary on 24 Thomistic Theses, where he has a nice commentary on first 2 principles of Thomistic philosophy, which is potency and act, so divide the being that anything that exists is either a pure act or a mixture of potency and act. And the second one is act is not limited except by potency, which is really distinct from itself, from the act that it limits. So read commentaries on those 2 where he gives proofs for both of the assertions.
Top 5 Reformed scholastics to read for helping in discussions with them. Well, first and foremost, I would say read the confessional documents. So, like that's what's going to be like really important. So read like the Westminster documents. So larger and shorter catechism and confession. And then also for like specifically soteriological questions, you can read the canons of the Synod of Dort. And beside that, I would say I like the Synopsis Purioris. So it's called the Leiden Synopsis. So I mean, if you read those 3, you should get a pretty good general overview. And if you want to read something a little bit more modern, you can read Berkhoff. What is that work by Berkhoff called? I probably haven't cracked it open in like 5 years. I think it's just called Systematic Theology. Yeah, it's just called Systematic Theology. So
I
yeah,
recommend
that'll give you a good
Petrus
overview. What are you saying, Astro?
No, I was saying that I recommend Petrus Van Maastricht.
Nah, don't read Petrus.
No, you don't
No
like him.
Petrus. Jerome asks, what is consubstantiation actually? Is it a doctrine most Protestants hold to, or did the Oxford movement come up with it? I was taught in school it's what Prots believe, but Wikipedia says otherwise. There's multiple different Darwell Stone, his introduction to like the history of Eucharistic theology is pretty good on this. But there's like multiple different views within Protestantism. I would kind of put them within like 3 categories. So first would be the category of those who simply hold that the Eucharist is symbolic. So they would, that's kind of most contemporary, evangelicals and some wings of like Reformed theology hold to this. So they just think that the Eucharist is a symbol of Christ's body and blood. The second would be I would put this in the category of like virtualism, might be the best way of putting it, which is basically that the Eucharistic consecration, um, it makes the body and blood to be instruments of the acquiring of Christ's justice. So it's somewhat of like of a means. It's not only a symbol, but it also like brings about a participation in Christ. And then the third category would be some sort of like union, or we can call it consubstantiation. I honestly, you talk to Lutherans, and Lutherans are like, "Oh, consubstantiation, it's a terrible term." And then you ask them to explain what they believe, and they basically um, explain consubstantiation. It would be like there is, by the Eucharistic consecration, not only is there the substance of Christ's body and blood, but there's also the substance of bread and wine, where we think that there is a change in substance that occurs. Can you explain of eternity to me? I mean, of eternity, it's just because time is basically like the measure of motion. So when you have distinct types of motion, so also do you have distinct types of time. So like God is completely above time because he's immutable, and bodily creatures are in time because we have bodily corporeal motion. But you can also think of creatures that are immutable as to their substance because they're spiritual, like angels or separated souls. But there's some sort of accidental change that occurs in them insofar as there's still a movement or motion of the intellect or will. So this movement or motion of the intellect and will is what we call aviternity. So it's not something which is continuous, it's something which is discrete. DN gave one Scholastic Answers membership. Thank you, DN. Wagner will look like Bill Belichick in 40 years. Okay, thank you for the super chat. Okay, I don't think internet piracy is a sin. I talked about, if you want like a discussion on this, you can look at my discussion with Traditional Thomist. It was earlier this week. If you go into the first super chat is on internet piracy, and I lay out the position. Um, doesn't look like we have any more questions that I want to answer. Well, we've been in on over an hour.
Yeah.
So that's a sufficient amount of time to make sure everybody is. I thought the Catechism did teach internet piracy as a sin since it's a form of theft. Where does the Catechism say that?
Yeah, I've never seen that in the Catechism.
Yeah. I mean, what you have to understand is that because these were written before the advent of the internet, usually when they talk about piracy, like the Catechism, I don't even know how it would treat internet piracy because most of the preparation work for this was done before the internet. But when most older authors talk about piracy as a sin, they're talking about the publishing of somebody else's work. So if like I wrote, let's say I like translated this entire book, and I had the files, and I sent a file to Astro, and then Astro posted it on Amazon and started making money off of my translation, that would be a form of piracy. That would be theft. That would be sinfully stealing somebody else's the work of somebody else's hands. But simply acquiring the use rather than like the right of sale from somebody else, like that's not contained under piracy. Oh, the youth catechism. Oh, the the UCAT, dude. The UCAT is crazy. It's like it like supports. Yeah, my face when the UCAT says that contraception is okay, but piracy is not. So cursed.
Does it actually say that?
Are you seriously trying to make us believe the Catholic Church has no problem with internet theft just because it's the internet? It's not theft. That's the whole point of it. That's the whole point, is that it's not theft. I don't know why you must assume the worst of everyone else. It's not theft. What am I stealing? Okay, I'll give you a question because it looks like you probably watch a lot of Netflix. if you turn on a Netflix show and you have a friend visiting who does not have a Netflix subscription, is simply the use or the enjoyment of some sort of content to which one is not given a subscription for, is that theft? If I download a PDF off of the internet, well, if I buy a Kindle book off of the internet and I give my computer to my wife to read it as well, is that somehow theft? So if my wife is in the other room and rather than having her read it off my computer, I send her the text and she reads it, is that theft? I mean, these are like more difficult questions, and just having this like visceral response of, oh, that's theft. It's just ridiculously imprudent to think in this way. Didn't Benedict XVI make it? No, he didn't make the UCAT. the 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 UCAT is not in any way, shape, or form magisterial. You're probably thinking about the compendium of the Catholic Church. Yeah, the UCAT is like absolutely awful. Although we do need a Latin version of the UCAT. That imagine we have a Latin version of the UCAT like we have a Latin version of the CCC. Okay, yeah, this response makes no sense. So you're telling me how do these moral acts acquire different species? Me in the other room, my wife and I watching a Netflix show when I've only paid for the Netflix subscription versus my wife being in a room next to me rather than in the same room as me, and then me sending her the MP4 rather than watching it on the same TV. Because piracy and theft are about taking away the use that somebody has of their product. So if I have a book in my hand right now that I paid for, this book right here is my property. If somebody breaks into my house and steals this book, they've stolen from me. But if I open up the pages and show it, and then somebody screenshots that and reads it, they've not stolen from me. How in the world would that be stealing from me? Doesn't make any sense. Would you submit to the local bishop if he said it's theft? I mean, it would depend because yeah, I guess it would depend. I absolutely wouldn't be preaching otherwise or teaching otherwise or in the public sphere talking about otherwise, because that would be a form of public dissent against my bishop, and I would never engage in public dissent. I think that would be difficulty. I mean, in like an academic setting, I might write a paper because writing a paper against a position given non-definitively by the magisterium or a book is not public dissent. It's that type of academic discussion that Donum Veritatis allows for. But I wouldn't somehow be absolutely bound in conscience uh, to necessarily assent to every moral judgment of my bishop. Yeah, and this is the important thing. Um, the U.S. government doesn't persecute piracy as theft. The charge is always copyright violation. Exactly, and this has been like this for a long time. Like you can find jurists in like the 1800s talking about this. How when it comes to what piracy is as theft, piracy as theft is like publishing somebody else's work. It's not going to a library and taking a few pictures of some pages like or downloading a PDF. That's not theft. The word piracy isn't even in the UCAT, bro. So you're saying that if I use $100 million to make a banger movie, I can rightly expect the Catholic Church to allow people to just take my movie, pirate it. I get no return and go bankrupt. That's called being a bad businessman. Okay, that's called being a bad businessman. The Catholic Church never. This is the issue. Okay, I'll describe it like this. For me, there's a way in which I have to engage in business. Like me publishing a book right here, that is an act of business, right? And I took time, I took my labor into producing this book. If I produced a book that was really bad, or I produced a book that wasn't economical and I didn't make money for my labor back, I don't have somehow a right to profit off of a bad business model. So if a company in publishing a book or a movie cannot keep up with the current exigencies of the internet, if they can't keep up with what is possible, then they don't have somehow a right to like make their money back on making a banger movie. They're bad businessmen. They made bad business decisions. They suck at business, and they've lost money on something. The Catholic Church doesn't somehow assure that when they make a movie, they're going to make money off of it. So if you can't keep up with modern technology and the way in which communication happens through modern technology, you don't have a right to business. Okay, didn't the Apostle Paul tell us to follow the government, thereby making piracy immoral? We already talked about this. The prosecutions that happen, and prosecution is a form of the promulgation of law. Promulgation is an essential element to a valid law. So if a law is not promulgated, and a law has entered a state of what's called destitution, this law is not, like, for example, I'm sure everybody's heard of there's a local ordinance talking about how you can't have an ice cream cone in your back pocket, or you can't chew gum in public. These laws are not enforced, and so therefore they're not validly promulgated. Luther loves you. Okay, dude. Okay, brother, I suppose we'll have to agree to disagree, as my conscience does not permit me to agree. Well, yeah, you should follow your conscience, but I mean, you can follow your conscience, but your conscience should be well formed by objective principles of morality, not by sort of whim or practical considerations or anything like that. Okay. Anyways, I think that's all. Astro, tell everyone about your stuff so they can follow you.
My stuff. You can find me on Twitter, X, at Temistiche, and on Medium by the same handle. And I just put up an article by Father Joseph Brett on potency and act against Floresians, so you can check that out if you want.
So true.
That's all.
Oh no, you got destroyed by Thomas Apologia on Modal Collapse. It's over.
Yeah, you sent it to me.
We'll have to talk about that one in particular sometime, because people didn't ask about that one as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can, sure.
Yeah, and I mean the response isn't incredibly difficult. We just have to for it. Okay, so thank you, everyone. Remember, to buy the book. Do not pirate. Do not pirate the book. It's a joke from the previous episode. Okay, buy the book. Yeah. The link is in the description below. I put the link on the screen earlier. I'll be putting it on Twitter and Telegram and Discord and everything like that. So yes, buy the book. Not only buy the book, but review the book. Remember, reviews are important. Review. If possible, write a review. Don't only just give it the 5 stars, but also write a little description like, "This is the best destruction of Molinism I've ever read." Like,
so true.
For life. Strict observance Thomism is awesome. Okay.
Can you show one page of the book, or you can't?
Can I show one page of it?
Yeah, I want to know how it looks. I want to see how it looks, if possible. If you don't want to show it, that's fine.
No, I mean that's fine. I just have to find the PDF.
No, I mean the physical. No, I meant the physical.
Oh, the physical. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Here's the So this quote right here.
Let me see. Yeah, that's good. Oh, what does God knows all the continued by causality or decree? This is the eternal foundation of. So true. So
We
real.
love Marine Sola. Yeah, I put
So,
that in the little front page
yeah.
because I think it's
Marine Soul, I'm maxing all the time.
yeah, okay. Nobody pirate. There's a preview on Amazon. Nobody pirate it. don't pirate my book, guys. Please don't pirate my books. Please don't do it.
Wait,
Please.
how can they do it?
I don't think it's bad for you to do it. Please don't do it. What'd you say, Astro?
Wait, how are they gonna do it? Like, somebody gets a copy and then they just send it to everyone? I think that's how it's gonna
Yeah,
get
I guess if
pirated.
somebody bought it on Kindle, they could do it. I could do the thing that like Father Ripperger did. Father Ripperger stopped releasing books on Kindle because people kept pirating his books by just buying the book, downloading it, and putting it on Isidore. So he just put the print version. So now people just buy the print version and take like
Okay,
hours to
I
scan it.
have the solution. Put an anathema on anyone who pirates it until it reaches 500 copies. Like,
True, until 500 copies sold
Yeah.
and 100 reviews, I will not be releasing the PDF.
Have you seen that scene from Assassin's Creed Unity where one of the Templars says, "I curse you and all your generations to come"?
True. That's literally me for everybody who pirates my books. Okay, so anyways, I appreciate all of you. As always, God bless.